Well, welcome again to Locali-T, just where we're talking about amazing people and amazing organizations. And again, I have Wendy with Tabitha's Way here. Thank you so much for being my favorite guest so far.
Hi, Chris. Thank you.
As we're getting into 2025, and man, how is it 2025 already?
I know. I keep thinking, wait, and now it's already into February. We're like, wait, what?
It ran.
Where'd January go?
Seriously, the last couple months with Christmas and with holidays, it just has been a mad dash. But
yeah, and we moved into our new building.
That's right. Tell me a little bit about that.
So we were able to close on a building on January 6th, and we moved over the weekend of the 17th and reopened on the 21st. So we were technically not shut any days of service, so our clients didn't miss any assistance or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, it's wonderful. It's great.
It is. Yeah, that is an amazing building. And now remind me, did we have the grand opening yet again, or is that?
No, we're actually, funny you should ask, we just finally narrowed in on a date. We wanted to get into the building and get settled, clean off some of the construction dust and then invite the community in.
Makes sense.
And so we are planning a ribbon cutting. You're actually the first person I've shared this with outside of Tabitha's Way. So, so March 27th at 10 a.m. is when we're going to be doing a ribbon cutting. So you're going to see some things going out and inviting the community to come in and celebrate this occasion with us.
Well, thank you for letting me in on the secret. I feel very flattered on that. It was amazing to walk through. I've been in your last building, and just the logisticalness of having to take things from one position and over to another because of how cramped you were. How much different is this new building to where you were at?
It's almost double the space, first off, which you've noticed.
Yeah.
You pointed out right away when we were talking or walking through the building is, wow, this is going to create a lot of operational efficiency, and you're absolutely right. It's operational efficiency. It's providing space to be able to serve the growing number of families that are food insecure in our communities. And then also in terms of food safety and logistics, like just processing food, there's so much more safety in having everything in one building versus having it in a detached warehouse and a main building. Plus, there was more parking, right?
That's amazing.
Who doesn't want more parking? Who doesn't need more parking?
That's right.
Yay.
Everyone needs more parking.
More parking.
That's so important. Yeah. I know last time we had talked a little bit about how you started Tabitha's Way, and I'd love to kind of hear a little bit again about that, just kind of what inspired that process. And I would then also like to maybe share a little bit about like kind of some things that happened in my past life where it connected so well with me, because I don't think I shared that last time, and I realized kind of thinking back, I was like, there is actually a really big why for me personally, and it was really exciting to have Triple T already involved. So if you don't mind, what just kind of inspired Tabitha's Way to begin with?
Prior to Tabitha's Way, which I started in 2010 here in Spanish Fork, I was in telecommunications, and I'll be honest with you, I love my career in technology, but on a personal level, let's just say I was a very busy, but also a very selfish person, is what I would say.
Fair.
I call it the evil Wendy, but really focused on career, focused on a lot of things, and kind of got to a point in my life where I was really going through, I would say, a spiritual crisis. And so I really started, stepping back and realizing, okay, what is life about? Who am I? And just really doing some thinking into what I'm doing with my life. And I spent about 2 years just volunteering with other organizations and saw a lot of need in a lot of areas. And the name Tabitha actually comes from a scripture in the Bible, in the book of Acts 9:36-42. There's a story of a woman named Tabitha who provided food and clothing for people in the community. And I was praying and meditating on that scripture when God put on my heart to leave my career in telecommunications and start a food pantry. And so best thing that's ever happened. Best thing. It's just been wonderful. So and it's not that you can't find fulfillment and good things in professional careers, right? We know we can, but it's about your why, right? And connecting with people. And I think in the current state of career and place that I wasn't really feeling that at all. And as I like meeting that need or even reaching out to do that. And so I feel like God put me in a different place to allow me to do that and see things differently through seeing the need in the community. And then just, so as much as I feed and help other people, I feel like I'm filled. I'm filled every day. Sure. Yeah. I'm filled every day.
That's really neat. I really feel that. And just getting to know you and hearing stories from other people in the community, I know that it's a deep thing, and it's not something that everybody thinks about all the time. Food insecurity can pop up with anybody, and whether it's medical bills that all of a sudden happen, or just life in general, a job doesn't go through, or company closes. And I know from my past life, when I was growing up, food was definitely something that we, I want to say, I guess struggled with is the right word. I grew up in Colorado, and we didn't have a lot during parts of our life. We had more than enough, but we didn't have a lot. And I remember there was one Thanksgiving in particular that stands out in my mind. It was when I was around 6, 7 years old, and I'm just starting to understand some things when it comes to feeling how families are operating, and when there's a little bit of tension and when there isn't. And I'm starting to kind of grasp that as a young child. And I remember all of a sudden noticing that the pantries inside of our house just didn't have anything on them. And I was, kind of asking about what type of snacks do we have? And we don't have any snacks. We're going to have dinner later on. And I remember it came down to where we ate popcorn, from what I remember and I recall, for a dinner one day. And our family kind of came together on Thanksgiving, and my parents were pretty real with us and just said, hey, so, Thanksgiving is going to be a little bit different this year. And, it's not something that, we're not going to have turkey. We're not going to have all this stuff. It's just not something that's available for us right now. And so we all got together and we just started praying, and there was a knock on the door, and there was a family that had come and had brought us the entire dinner for Thanksgiving. And then we're like, this is amazing. And then there's another knock that came on the door, and another family had brought another whole Thanksgiving dinner. And we ended up at the end of this day with 3 Thanksgiving dinners that were provided from nothing. Yeah. And it really stuck out in my mind for a very long time. And we ate a ton of turkey, I'll tell you that much, a lot of turkey.
Turkey feast.
Oh man. But from that process in Colorado, we started getting integrated in, food banks and other, local charities and church charities that were just donating food. And we as a family, we volunteered, and it's really what kept us alive for several years of our life. And when I came to Triple T and had heard of, the Tanner brothers saying, hey, you need to talk to Wendy. And it was a really cool moment that kind of brought up. And so for me, it's a deep, I've been there. I've been there where, as a child, not knowing how to deal with this and being on the receiving end. And I think it's such a blessing. So I just wanted to share that story with you because I hadn't yet. But it was something that was really, really interesting for us to go through. And I just don't think a lot of people think about that sometimes.
Yeah. I would say thank you so much, Chris, for sharing your story. It's such a powerful story to recognize your own experience with food insecurity and how that lends itself to understanding why other people might be food insecure. Yeah. I was blessed growing up and really didn't go without, but going through this experience of helping other people. And one of my favorite things to do in our food pantry is when somebody first comes in, we sit down and we do a needs assessment. And through that process, we learn what their story is, and it always amazes me, because for that moment, I could put myself in their shoes and see things from their lens. And it's incredibly powerful, and I'm always just transformed by those experiences when we sit and talk about our stories and how powerful they are. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I when you were talking about that, when I walked through your first facility, when I went there the first time, that was something that really struck me. I really appreciated that, knowing that the goal isn't just to provide a service just as the end all be all. It's how can we help beyond just food? Mm-hmm. And do you mind kind of walking through some of that process that you guys go through to kind of exploring that side?
Yeah, so I think I've shared with you before, but for those of you who don't know, Tabitha's mission is to provide temporary food assistance, recommend resources for self-reliance, and neighbors helping neighbors. And we believe strongly that we understand that the people who are showing up to our food pantry, those families, yes, they need food, but we also understand that there's also probably a root cause that's causing that food insecurity. And our goal is to sit down and have conversations with people that are to be very comfortable with one another and be able to, in such a way that it lends itself to they can share their story, and then also help us, kind of identify what is that root cause of food insecurity. What is that cause, and then what resources do we have in the community that can actually help them maybe recover from that food insecurity sooner, or maybe prevent it from happening again. Because the truth is everyone who comes to our food pantry, they don't want to be there. They don't want to be food insecure. They don't want to be in a position where they have to ask for help for food. Yeah. It's absolutely devastating for most people. A very humbling experience. Many of the people who come into our food pantries you can see it in their faces. They're downtrodden. Many of them cry. And then I cry, of course, and I cry. I'm just like, it's such an emotional experience, but a blessed one too, because it's an opportunity to connect, to work together, and see one another.
Sure. Yeah. So, how many families do you serve in a given year, would you say?
Oh, in a given year. So Tabitha's Spanish Fork, we just served over 77,000 individuals. I will tell you, January, this past month, was one of our largest months. We served nearly over 900 additional households than we had in months past. It was like crazy. Sorry, 900 individuals, not households. So, but we're seeing about, I would say, usually we were hovering around 6,000 individuals, but now we're seeing over 7,000. So wow. It just continues to grow.
And so the demand seems to be increasing lately. Is that a fair statement? Yes.
As many of us know, eggs are now over $6 a dozen. Ouch. So obviously inflation's playing a role in that.
Got it.
And then housing's a factor in Utah County, as we both know. Most of the families we're serving are paying 50% or more of their monthly income in housing. And what that does is if you're paying that much of your monthly income towards housing, once you factor in your other cost of living needs, you don't have money for savings. And so one little blip like, my car broke down, or I need a medication, or I'm sick and I don't have paid days off, or something like that, one little blip, then they find themselves in our food pantry. So those are, and of course population growth, but those are the factors that we're seeing, which is causing rapid rising and increase in the number of families coming into food pantries. And not just Tabitha's Way, across the board. If you call any food pantry or food bank, they will tell you that the demand has increased significantly.
Got it. So. Yeah. And it's true. I was looking at some pricing for manufacturers and just seeing what some of the costs that are getting passed along to us, between, changes in EPA regulation and manufacturing practices, and just some things that are completely out of the control. It's a solid, it's not just something that, you replace your system now. It's something where it's a big decision. In some cases, it's well over what a car costs in some cases, depending on, different factors. And, we definitely feel that, and being able to understand how best to, make a decision in that environment is an interesting problem. And so I really feel that, where God forbid also you don't have heat and you don't have savings and we don't have food, and how do we come together as a community to help this? And I hear it all the time, and I see it all the time. I'm looking at pricing, just like you said, on eggs or whatnot, and it's amazing how much we're spending now compared to where we were in the past. And what type of donations or help do you find that is most needed kind of today, as you've kind of seen the change as we have increased in pricing? What are the key things that people can help with when it comes to food insecurity and helping other people that find themselves in, or even themselves that find themselves in that particular place?
Yeah. Well, food pantries need three basic things. It's food, time, and money, right? So food donations, if you have a surplus of food or have the ability to buy a little extra and donate some, that's always a great thing. Time, volunteers. Bigger building means, we're serving more people, but we have bigger space, more processes, and we need more volunteers. And not just volunteers that come in and stock our food pantry, but also we're looking for high-level volunteers, individuals who will help with committees and things like that. So ways to help our organization grow exponentially as we see the increase in need. So volunteering your time is a wonderful thing. I love our senior volunteers and people who are getting ready to retire. They've got expertise that they can come in and lend a hand. And then of course I love our kids. They're all full of energy, and if there's something heavy, they can get it done lickety split. So that's how they're back and lifesavers. So which is wonderful, And then of course funds. And so like participating in some of the events and things that we're talking about, where we're, some of the programs that you're going to bring up here shortly, but helping donate a little bit extra here and there helps our organization quite a bit. Got it.
Are there some seasonal trends that kind of play into food pantries? What's your perspective on that?
There are. There's ebb and flow, but as far as seasons are concerned, if we're talking about like weather and when kids are out of school, we see more families coming in because they were relying on maybe the free or reduced lunches to help feed their families. Now their kids are home all day. Now they need more food in the house to help feed the kids, type of situation. Of course, holiday seasons, there's a heightened need during that time as well. Families who are struggling with food insecurity also want to provide Christmas for their kids.
Yeah.
What parent doesn't, right? Yeah. So but that extra pressure and stress on parents then also heightens the need for food insecurity, because they're like, well, what do we buy food, or are we going to give our child a gift for Christmas, at least one? What are we going to do? So, and no parents have to make that choice. Do I feed them or give them a Christmas gift? Is there a way I can do both? Type situation. So there's a lot of that that we see, but certainly summer months and the holidays are difficult. But then typically also food pantries see an ebb and flow in regards to food donations that come in. So we'll see a lot of food donations that'll come in during the holiday season, but then we're going to see a huge drop off in the spring. And then summer, it's like crickets. It's like, where'd all my food people go? it's like, where'd you go? So we actually try to do a big bump in the spring months, preparing for the big flood of families that we're going to get during the summer. So
makes sense.
And we got to make through the summer, and part of the fall, and then fall starts to pick up and we get the food drives, and then we make it through the winter months. But it's kind of like this.
It's up and down. Oh man. Is there in that process too? When I was looking through how I'm this operational guy. I'm like, processes, yay. We have all of our refrigerated items, we have our canned foods, we have our dried goods, we even have like paper goods, and there's all these different types of things that you're moving around and you're putting into almost a grocery store style place where people can come in and just see what their needs are and have a great experience when it comes to coming in, and you're not feeling like you're just in a soup line per se.
Yeah, dignity and respect. Do
you mind talking a little bit about what people could experience if they were walking through, and getting food? What are the different types of items that you tend to see, and how does that process work?
So to what you were stating earlier, we try very hard to have a variety of food items that are available to families we're serving. Making sure we have access to dairy, fresh eggs, milk, cheese, meats as well, like frozen meats and so forth. Produce is really important. So, of course, yes, providing those shelf-stable items, canned foods, rice, dried pasta, beans are very important. But making sure families have a variety of food that they can have accessible to them. 50% or more of the population were serving their children, so households with kids. So making sure they have access to nutrition is really important. And then we are set up what we call our client choice food pantries, which is like a grocery store. So if you were to go to a grocery store, Chris, and you were to show up and say, okay, I need food, but before you could shop, you had to wait 45 minutes for you to even begin shopping. And then when they said, okay, now you can get food, but guess what? We've picked out a box of food for you. Let's go ahead and just check you out through the checkout line. How would you feel?
Not great.
Do you like to pick your food?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and again, I mean, I like for my family, there would be some dietary things that I would, if I could have a choice on, that would be great. There's some items that we try not to eat a lot of, and I understand that sometimes the choice isn't there, but it would be nice to be able to see everything that could work into what my family is used to eating as well. So that would be my perspective. Yeah,
what you'd be used to eating, and then like you mentioned, maybe some things you'd like to eat, but there's also families with dietary restrictions that aren't a need, or aren't a want, it's a need.
Fair enough.
It's like I've got diabetes, or I've got high blood pressure, or I've got this particular health issue, and I can't eat these foods.
Yeah, totally.
And
fair.
So it's absolutely important that when it comes to providing food for people, that we're providing food that they want and need and can use, or it would be wasteful, right? So setting up our pantries as a client choice. Which is, when I say client choice, it looks like a little grocery store. It's very much like, you grab a shopping cart, you go through the aisles, you pick the food that you would like to have, that you would use, and that are going to be nutritious and healthy for you, based off of your choices for your family's needs.
Got it. Yeah, I was blown away by it. I love it. I love it so much because that's a hard thing. I love the dignity. I love the respect side because people are important, and it's just people, and we get to care about each other and take care of each other, and that's awesome. Are there certain household items or foods that you would say like top 3 always short on? What would you say to that?
We are always short on flour, sugar, and cooking oil. So we like to get our flour and sugar in little 5-pound bags so that everybody can get like a 5-pound bag of flour, sugar, and then just cooking oil. Those are always in need.
Okay, got it.
So
during certain times of the year, I know last year we tried to get a specific pineapple and yams kind of food drive going, because you had identified as well that there's some seasonal items that tend to make their rounds. Is that the same thing with paper products or other things that you tend to see some variance on?
So paper products, typically what we provide in our food pantry is usually like toilet paper is a big one. Also, I guess you can consider a paper product, but diapers and wipes kind of type of situation. The pineapples and the yams were like for our holiday meals.
Got it.
So holiday type situation. But paper products, a lot of times it's just TP, toilet paper, the good stuff, the plain old simple toilet paper type
Love
situation.
That's great.
Everybody needs TP.
We do. Everybody does. That's very true.
The necessities.
It's so funny, and it's so odd to say, but you're having these conversations and just reflecting back on my own life. It is interesting how you sometimes don't realize something that you need it until it's gone, because we just take for granted it every day. Yeah. And I really appreciate how well thought your organization has gone through all of that. One thing that I kind of had kind of a question on, and this is a question that I ask all the time, but I love asking this question. I hear everybody ask it because this is kind of the ultimate kind of feel-good side of the story. But what are some stories that just really stick out to you from your time that you've been at Tabitha's Way, and how has that affected you?
Well, there's one story that I like to tell, and I've told many times. There was a young woman who came to our food pantry. She was married, and her husband sadly got involved into drugs and criminal behavior, was incarcerated, and the marriage failed. And so she quickly became a single mother. And she came into our food pantry, and she was unique, or a little bit of an exception to the rule, in that she utilized our food pantry for more than 3 months. So she was coming for about a year's time. And one day she walked in and she handed me a small white envelope, and that envelope was an invitation to her graduation from nursing school. And I was blown away. I was absolutely, and she just said, Wendy, I couldn't work full time, be a mom, be a single mom and go to school. I couldn't do all three. For me to get my family in a situation where I could provide for my children, I had to go to school. And so your food pantry allowed me the space to do that, because I was able to focus on my kids, get food, go to school. And I think back at that moment often. I reflect on that often and feel so grateful for that moment. That the small thing that I did played a part in a big change in her life, and just grateful. Yeah, it changes me. It changed me. Every time I think about it, just brings tears to my eyes.
Oh man, yeah, that's amazing. And also, I think that there's a lot of people that see needs, but just don't necessarily know how to necessarily get involved, or the best way on even directing people in some cases to these different programs. Nobody trained anybody on, if you hear that some or see somebody's having a hard time, what to do. I think a lot of times in just day-to-day life, we kind of, how are you doing? Good, okay, move on, right?
Yep. And we're on.
And we're on. So if you were to give maybe some tips, just in your experience with this for so long, if people see something or maybe suspect something's going on, is there some tips that maybe you could give us to be able to help guide some people that may be on the edge, or just not sure if they just should go to the food pantry yet? How would you respond to that?
Great question. Love the question. First off, I would say, let's say you have, maybe, Chris, you have a friend who you suspect maybe he's gone through some rough times, and maybe they're struggling with food insecurity. I think first and foremost, making a space with that individual, a friend, depending on your connection there, making a space where they feel comfortable to share what they're going through. And the first thing that you would want to do is be vulnerable yourself. Maybe share your story. Making a space for them to say, oh, it's okay for them to say they're not okay too. So being real, being vulnerable ourselves is a really important part of that. And maybe your story isn't food insecurity, maybe it's something else, but it could be, I've gone through these tough times, or hey, I went through a period of time where I lost a job, or I went through this, or I was struggling in this way. So making it okay for people to say they're not okay is really important. Another thing that people can do is whether you are struggling with food insecurity or not, come down and visit our pantry. Come down and see what we're about. I find oftentimes individuals who come to our food pantry for the first time are more likely to come if they come with a friend or family member who's bringing them down. So, for example, I had a mother who contacted me, and she herself had gone through being a single mother raising children, and she had a daughter. She called me because her daughter had recently just been abandoned. Her husband just left her alone with 3 kids, just walked out the door. And this young girl just didn't know what to do. And the mother reached out to me and asked about our services. I talked to her and I said, please bring your daughter down. But she encouraged her daughter to call me first. So her daughter called me, and I shared with her what we're about. And when I was talking to the daughter, she shared how she was on her last pack of diapers. Like, she only had a few diapers left. She didn't have any diapers. She didn't have any money to buy formula. And she had an infant. She had a young infant that she was trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to feed this 4-month-old baby? And I don't have any money for formula. And so she was just, you could hear the crackling in her voice and the desperation that she was experiencing. And she felt very much alone and isolated and ashamed. And so through the conversation that she had with her mother and with me, she came down and we were able to help. But having her mother connect with her and bring her in made her feel safe and encouraged about coming to get help, feeling safe to ask for help. And so So that's a very simple way, just is come down, see Tabitha's Way, or even if you haven't been there and you know somebody needs help, come with your friend so that they don't feel alone in asking for help. They don't feel like, oh, I've got to do this on my own. Having a friend hold your hand through a tough time, even if you're not yourself feeling secure, means all the world to people.
Yeah, community, right?
Yeah. We're not alone. Let's do this together. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
How does organizations maybe in the community, companies, like Triple T or other partners that you have, how do companies kind of fit into this puzzle of helping the community, and what opportunities are there for them to be able to help as well?
And I'm going to say this on a broad perspective, whether it's Tabitha's Way or whoever. Of course, obviously I want come help Tabitha's Way, but I think businesses in general want to do good. They're in the community, want to be connected to the community. They want to do business in a healthy community. And so recognizing that and reaching out to nonprofits, hopefully Tabitha's Way is one of them, but coming by and getting to know nonprofits and getting an understanding of the work that they do, what their mission is, how they perform their work is so valuable, and knowing that as a resource. And then finding out, how does that fit with your company? I mean, Chris, you've done a great job of coming down and saying, okay, we do food insecurity, you guys do heating and air. It's like, okay, how do these two intersect? Yeah. But we found, you've done a great job of finding, how do we intersect here? How do we work together to help one another out and make a difference in our community and help one another thrive? And so it's making that connection, and each business will find a way to do that within the nonprofits, within the different organizations. It's not as hard as I think we overthink things.
Sure, yeah, totally.
I know, guilty,
Yeah,
but it's really much more simpler than we realize.
Yeah.
It's making those connections.
What I've loved seeing, I'm parts of some groups around the country, and there's some HR groups and some business partners and business owners and things like that I have the pleasure of being able to talk to, and some things that I've heard that people are starting to integrate more into their companies and culture and daily routines is, company events where, hey, we as a company are going to come together as a team building idea and find a nonprofit or a something in the community that we can help with.
A cause to rally around.
You got it. And we're gonna choose to be sacrificing some of our time and bring that into the community for the betterment of everybody that's involved. Mm-hmm. And if companies were looking for an opportunity to maybe donate some time or do something as a way of really sealing the culture of, this is who we are. We believe that people are important. We believe that we're a part of an organism or organization that's larger than us. In Tabitha's Way specifically, how could somebody do that if they were looking for an opportunity to do that in their
so I would just say go to our website and you can click on the volunteering page and you can fill out either any of those like group volunteer opportunities, or also just shoot us an email. help@tabithasway.org. That's not just for people who need help, but people who want to know more about, like, help me out, help me understand who your organization is. Just send us an email, and we'd love to connect with you, or pop on by. You can drop by our business anytime, and say, hey, I'd like to know how we can connect, or I'd like to learn more. We love it when people, stop by, because we just give them a big old hug and say, and we're going to keep you.
I love it. Yep. And you do a great job on that. You guys are so sticky when it comes to being able to feel the true, you cherish the people that you serve. And that's amazing. And that's something that I want to bring into our organization. Sometimes heating, plumbing, cooling, electrical, all of that doesn't have necessarily a warm fuzzy, but it's also a really vulnerable thing. I've been in thousands upon thousands of people's homes, and taking a perspective that I'm here to serve you, but also I'm here to make sure that I'm treating it better than my own home, and that I'm entering into your environment is such a key thing in our culture that I want to keep, that I really like how it aligns there, because you cherish the people. We need to cherish the people that are coming into, or we're going into their doors rather. Make sure that not only are we professional and we're doing the right thing for our clients, but how do we genuinely show that we care? And that's where I've really appreciated our partnership, and trying to figure out ways that we can continue moving forward and helping, because all of us need to get reset sometimes. It's easy to say, oh yeah, we helped out last year, you know, and oh yeah, we had this one client that gave us a great Google review, and yay, we're done, right? And it isn't that way. It's a daily commitment to make sure that we're choosing people first, and we're choosing to honor people and do what's right, even when it's hard to do that.
Yeah. No, I love that. You're right. It's about people and valuing people, and whether you're in a nonprofit or running a business, how much that matters, those relationships. And people know, people sense those authentic connections, and being able to say, yeah, I'm here to help you with your furnace, but I see you. I see your struggle. I see, your need, and how can I best help or serve you is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. We've made some, obviously changes with Tanner Brothers having, Vern Tanner founded the company.
And the whole Tanner family,
oh
daughters
my gosh.
too, right? The
everybody.
sons and daughters.
Everybody. It's a whole family affair, and it's been that way for 51 years coming into this. I know, it's crazy. And I've been deeply blessed and honored that I've been given the opportunity to help honor this really integral family name in our community, and see how we can continue it and even have a bigger impact than we had in the past. Not that there wasn't an impact, but that how can we go from glory to glory, and move forward. And one of the things that we had chatted about that I'm excited to talk through is this March we've just chosen to do inspections for $51 as a celebration of 51 years. And the reason why we chose inspections, because I have a lot of questions when it comes to inspections. Why an inspection? Why not just a full service? And I'm going to use your food pantry now as my analogy for everything, if I can work it in. But just like in the food pantry, if there's options and there's different food things that somebody would specifically need, we like to take that same perspective when it comes to our inspections, so we can look through the equipment and say, okay, your furnace is not just the same furnace as maybe another person somewhere else in town. The way that you live in your house and the way that you like to be comfortable is different from your next door neighbor, and probably your spouse, if we're being honest. And
the fight of the thermostat.
Yes, exactly. You turn it up, they turn it down, vice versa. And so with the inspections, what we found to be the most valuable, especially in a time where we are trying to be conscientious with what we're spending and exactly how do we know if this is going to have an effect into the future. The inspections allow us to come in and take a look at the system and celebrate the wins on the system that are really, really good. And then give an idea looking forward into the future. Okay, these are some things that could specifically help you for specific reasons. And so the inspection is made for us to come in, take a look at the equipment. We go through something called cores. We're trying to work it into core values, but also the core side of your home. What is the cleanliness? How is the operation? What is the reliability? What is the efficiency? And most importantly, what is the safety of the system? And so we'll look at all of those items, whether it's heating, air conditioning, electrical, and plumbing, and then be able to give you specifically for your home what your home needs, not just a run-of-the-mill, oh, everybody needs this.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. That's amazing. So it's interesting, as you're talking through this, I was thinking about reflecting back in my mind about on the experience. Triple T came in and did our HVAC for us in my home. And as I sat through and I explained some of my concerns with heating and air, but then also air quality and some of the health issues I was experiencing and my needs, and making recommendations based off of those particular needs, I can see that weaved into that conversation. I was reflecting on that, thinking that was it was a wonderful experience too. It was like, okay, yeah, this is, here's some suggestions, here's some ideas, here's how we can mitigate that. What are your thoughts? So it was a great conversation, and I know it sounds funny, but I do love my heating and air conditioning, and I love my humidifier and my air quality because it's improved my health. And so it's something you don't think about every day until you're struggling with health issues. You're like, oh, this might be a problem. It's
amazing. Yeah. I know the EPA has found that indoor air quality is always 2 to 5 times, and in some cases 100 times worse than the worst outdoor air. Mm-hmm. And I had a friend a long time ago, one of my good friends, his name is Casey. He would use the example that if we were to fly over to Beijing, and we were to take a cardboard box that could be sealed up with air, and you took all that air that's up above Beijing, all that smog, and you were to encapsulate it, and then you were to bring it into your house, and you were to set it down on the table, and then you were to open it up and take a big whiff, technically that's healthier than the indoor air.
Wow, it's like crazy.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, it is.
And every home's different. ventilation is a big deal, fresh air coming in and out of the house, but it is something that we just don't think about, and building sickness happens. Mm-hmm. And I worked in a building for a long time in Colorado that it was just not a great health environment, and my health really, really dropped. And then when I came to Utah with clean air and a new building and having awesome ventilation and everything put into it, I was amazed at how less I was sick.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting, the things that we don't think about.
Yeah. It's fascinating as you go through and you're like, oh, okay, yeah.
Well, with that $51 inspection, one thing that we'd like to do for you guys is, in celebration of being in business for 51 years and a $51 inspection, over March and April, I have a goal at minimum to be able to raise $5,100 for Tabitha's Way. And we're going to ask our community and the people that work with us for help in that. And so for every $51 inspection that's scheduled, whether it's a plumbing, electrical, heating, or cooling visit, regardless if any additional work is done, for each one of those particular inspections that are scheduled, we're going to donate $5.10 to you all. Oh. And we had a conversation that $5.10 is the equivalent of 25 meals. Is that right?
25 meals for every $5.10.
Yeah. So we're excited to be able to do what we love to do, which is nerd out on heating, air conditioning, plumbing, and electrical, and also know that every time we go to one of those visits that we're helping our community with 25 meals that can help feed those families. So what's kind of your response to that?
Well, when you first told me, I was like, wow, that's so amazing. That's so wonderful. And $5,000 is over 25,000 meals. That's like 25,500 meals. First off, that's huge. But I love this idea of, inspection, of coming in, because right now, of course, you've got this cold. It's funny that you bring up the inspection. I have a friend who just was going through a situation where their furnace turned off the last few days, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. And it's been so cold, right? It's been so cold. And so one thing that's nice about the inspections too is maybe even before something goes wrong, because there's the rush of during the wintertime, if your furnace goes out, it's an urgent need, or in the middle of summer, it's an urgent need. But maybe even in the spring season, before it gets too hot, or as we're coming off, hopefully we're coming off, knock on wood, coming off a cold season is what I'm saying.
Totally.
But having that inspection done, having things checked out, and whether that's your furnace or some particular plumbing needs. I've got this faucet that's kind of giving me some grief, or or why does this bathroom always smell bad? It was like, what's going on in here before it backs up, kind of situation. Find out what's going on and diagnose the problem and look at it from that perspective and say what's working well, what's not working well is a really good approach. But that's exciting. I think that's a wonderful thing. And so,
awesome.
I know my friend certainly wished that she had some inspection done on her furnace before it went out for 2 days. So nobody wants that.
No.
So.
And it is interesting too. I mean, as much as we like to, it's funny. I am an HVAC guy, but I am not a car guy. So if you ask me to fix my car or anything, I'm just like, no, thank you. I'm good with the electronics and furnaces and boilers. I do not want to do anything with cars. So when that little light that pops up and it starts blinking at me, I'm like, well, I don't hear anything that's wrong. I'm still driving. Maybe I'll just, push it out a little bit. And it's so funny how being reactionary in that way has always cost me more money than trying to be just handle it sooner than later. But I get it. It's already hard enough to invite people into your home that you don't know. And then on top of that, not knowing what they're actually going to do inside the home. Is it just going to be, they come in and tell me I need a whole brand new thing, or is there options? And that fear of not knowing how that process is, I think sometimes stop us from being able to save people a lot of money by just being a little bit more upfront, and we can come in and just kind of show the scope of things. No is always an okay answer, and it allows you to kind of fit into your budget how we're going to react rather than having to react at the worst time.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. It's like I think there's certain things that we do, like, oh, if we do this will prevent certain things. But then there's certain things that we don't do that with. Like for you, it might be your car, or if you're thinking about something, a faucet that's like, well, it's kind of working, but it's not working as good as it should be, and you wait, and then all of a sudden it fails, and you're like, oh no, or I've got this leak, or those kind of things. But there's certain things you have a propensity to, like for me, if a light goes off in my car, I'm like, oh, this thing's got to get fixed right away because I need this car. I don't do broken down on the side of the road. It's not going to be a pretty sight. So it's kind of funny how we have these things that we have that mindset. But if we can shift our mind to thinking, okay, if we look at this now, we might save ourselves a lot of headache down the road kind of situation. So
it's amazing. I'm a numbers guy, operations guy, so I live in that space, and it really blew me away early on when I was running some numbers and I was learning some more about HVAC. But did you know that if you get just 1/20th of an inch, which is like, if you just wipe your finger on some dust, there might be this place they haven't dusted in a while. There might be 1/20th of an inch where you can kind of see it on your finger. If you have that much dirt and debris on some of the components of your heating and air conditioning equipment, it will reduce its life expectancy and its efficiency by about 21%.
Wow.
And that's from hundreds and hundreds of studies that the EPA went through. And it was fascinating to look at and just see how the correlation between equipment, especially nowadays when it's regularly serviced and cleaned, on the life expectancy is wild. And the other interesting thing, looking back in history, and I'm nerding out on HVAC now, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's fascinating.
I don't always get the question, but when I was in the field, I would get it a lot on, well, why doesn't the system last as long as they used to? Because, I had this furnace from the 60s, and now it's, 2000, and I'm replacing it for the first time. And now 10 years later, I'm like, why am I needing to replace this system again? And what's really fascinating about that is, unfortunately, with the way that we're trying to not consume as much natural resources, whether it's natural gas or as our electrical grid has a bigger amount of load on it, all of the furnaces are made from being just this massive burning as much fuel as humanly possible and super thick cast iron heat exchangers with no safeties that say something's wrong to shut them off, to a very specifically sized and almost delicate machine that can last a very long time, but it has to be installed the right way the first time and then serviced in order to ensure that you get the lifespan out of it. And that's very helpful for our community, because if we install a bunch of furnaces that are not sized right, our usage in gas and all of our usage in electrical just goes way off the chart. And then the furnaces fail faster because it knows it's not working properly. And so now we're having to blend a lot more thought process into how we're sizing things. What upgrades have you made in the home? Are the windows from 1960, or have we replaced them? And all of that changes what size of furnace or AC would be needed in the home in order to get that lifespan. And so there's a lot that goes into it, and you're right. It's a thing on, I don't know, maybe if I need to do this, or I always seem to have to clean this thing and it keeps getting more expensive. Like, maybe I'll just skip this year. All of that debris and the increased filtration that you can get can cut down on the number of times that you need to spend money on cleanings, and it can also extend the life. So we've really tried to focus on our installs to ensure that there's always something that can increase the longevity beyond what the factory thinks that its lifespan is, just to try to serve the community and make sure that we're not having to invest tens of thousands of dollars every 10 years. So
it's interesting that I just applied that in my mind to food insecurity. A lot of families come into our food pantry and they're in crisis, and so they're focused, they're laser focused on the situation, the crisis at hand. And one of the things that we try to do through our process of our intake is to get people to look up and look out ahead. And so look out ahead. You're here now. We recognize that. We understand there's urgency. Let's look ahead down the road, and what will this look like? And so what things will prevent or help recover quickly? So it's a similar thing, but different.
It's amazing.
I guess.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love that.
That's what I was thinking about when you're talking about that. I'm like, oh, so we found another way where our businesses are very similar.
I love it. Yeah. I really like that. And I think too, just kind of my personal core values, if I'm looking at just a way of making a transaction, there's ways of running businesses that way, and some businesses are transactionary. We just happen to be in a relational business per se, and ensuring that a transaction may be needed to fix a problem today, but having some, or to really care enough about the client to showcase, well, here's what the future could look like. And let me show you the whole catalog rather than just focusing on the one item on maybe one page in the book. What is the whole options available to everybody, and how is that going to fix your issues as far as inside the home or health or air quality or heating and cooling in the long term rather than just band-aiding in the short term. And I love that with food too. I love how you guys take a look at what is the whole real reason why we got to this spot to begin with, and then how can we help you and provide you options in order to give you a future and a hope. And I really try to, we at Triple T, we really try to keep that as a value for us as well. So. Yeah.
No, again, I'm reflecting again on my install for my own house, and Brad coming out and I'm laughing because I had like vents that were closed off in my house, and he noticed. He's like, hey, what's going on with these vents that you all have? I was like, well, I have to turn these vents off so I can have this air over here and this over there. And just, it was kind of a fun educational moment where he showed me, he's like, actually, no, you're not helping your air quality by closing off these vents. You need to keep your vents open. Here's the things that you can do. And just like going through this whole educational assessment moment. So that was my Wendy's intake for HVAC.
I love it. I love it. That's great. Oh, man.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time and just talking through all of this. I know we always have fun, and gosh, there's some big issues out there when it comes to just food insecurity, and there's a lot of personal stories that are wrapped up inside of that. And I just want to thank you so much for being the person that raised your hand and said, here I am, send me, right? And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the people that maybe you haven't been able to hear that from, but knowing in my past how much it changed my life, I'm sure that there is that much gratitude as well directed towards you and your organization.
Oh,
so
Chris,
thank you so much.
No, thank you, Chris and Triple T and the whole Triple T family and organization. Triple T's had a long relationship with Tabitha's Way. They have been alongside us the whole time since we started, and we've greatly valued that relationship, that friendship that we've had, and the work we do. We know we don't accomplish alone. And it's so comforting to me to know that Tabitha's exist because there's so many people and individuals, I guess that's the same thing, individuals and organizations that have been our support. Like, we don't do this alone, and I'm not alone in this work, because if you're trying to do it alone, you're going to be overwhelmed. But having partners, having friends that are alongside you, it means all the world. And that means when we celebrate our successes, we celebrate them together. It's like, hey, it's a party. We did this.
That's right.
Yay.
Yes. Community and locality, right? Which is why I named it this way, because we are all supposed to be in this together. And thank you so much. I'm really excited for your grand opening.
Thanks.
And I'm really excited to beat that goal of $5,100, and I'm excited to see how we can help more in the future.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.